The closing ceremony for the delayed 2020 Olympics is underway in Tokyo in a virtually empty stadium due to coronavirus restrictions. The organisers say that only 19 athletes were unable to compete because they tested positive. Well, among the day's final sporting highlights, Team GB cyclist Jason Kenny successfully defended his Keirin title to become the first Briton to win 7 Olympic gold medals. In other news, fierce fighting is reported in the northern Afghan city of Kunduz, where government forces are trying to push back Taliban militants. A Taliban spokesperson said their fighters were inching towards the city centre. And thousands of residents and tourists have been evacuated from towns north of Athens as wildfires spread across Greece. 2 people are known to have died.
In India, Prime Minister Narendra Modi says changes in Kashmir will free it from terrorism. The area is in its 4th day of an enforced curfew. In the American state of Mississippi, immigration officials released some of the over 600 undocumented migrants arrested on Wednesday. The raids happened at meat processing factories. In Myanmar, flooding from heavy rains continues to force tens of thousands of people from their homes. And a United Nations report says rising temperatures could have serious effects on agricultural production and food security.
It's almost turned into a 12-month season in terms of fighting these fires, and every year gets more and more intense. It just shows you the effect that global warming is having on our environment.
The world is radically changing. This climate change is real. You may not believe in science, you gotta believe your own damn eyes. Look around.
Climate change is here, it's real, and it's like a hammer hitting us in the head, and we have to take action.
West Coast governors speaking about those deadly wildfires tearing across the region brought on by record heat waves, severe droughts, and forest conditions, all exacerbated by climate change. It comes as wildfires also rage across Greece, Turkey, and Russia, forcing thousands to flee. Here to discuss what's causing the fires, what can be done, Professor Michael Mann, director of the Earth System Science Center at Penn State, author of The New Climate War, and Christina Dahl, senior climate scientist at the Union of Concerned Scientists. And Dr. Dahl, let me begin with you. Talk about the connection between this extreme weather we're seeing, the wildfires both here and around the world, and climate change.
Sure. So around the world, what we're seeing is that very hot conditions tend to worsen any drought conditions that places might be experiencing. So you end up with severe drought coupled with a drying out of vegetation. And that vegetation then becomes fuel for fires to burn. So we're seeing places like the western U.S. really become a tinderbox, ready to burn with any spark.
And Dr. Mann, as we look around the world and we see this raging, not just in the West, but as we said, in Greece and Turkey and other countries, we know that there are still a lot of skeptics out there who say you can't tie this directly to climate change. You can't tie any single event to climate change. What do you say to that?
Well, there's a report that's going to be coming out tomorrow, in fact, the next report of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the IPCC. And this time, the report really connects the dots. The signal, as we call it, has emerged from the noise. We can see the impacts of climate change playing out now in real time on our television screens and in our newspaper headlines. Dangerous climate change has arrived, and at this point, it's a question of how bad we're willing to let it get.
So the question is, hey, what do we do about it right now? Dr. Dahl, you go first.
So right now, in the immediate time frame, the focus really needs to be on preserving homes and lives, particularly of the firefighters who are out there battling these blazes 24 hours a day. But looking into the future, we know that with continued global warming, these fires are only going to get worse. The air quality deterioration that people across the U.S. are experiencing is only going to get worse. And so we desperately need to be focusing on weaning ourselves off of fossil fuels as fast as possible so that we limit future warming. And at the same time, we need to be building up the individual and community level wildfire resilience so that when these fires do happen, people's lives and homes and communities aren't just reduced to ashes.
Dr. Mann, is it too late?
No, I mean, that's the good news. The bad news is dangerous climate change has arrived. The good news is we can prevent it from getting worse. And the latest science tells us that if we bring our carbon emissions down to 0, the planet stops warming up. So look, There is a pledge on the part of the Biden administration to cut our emissions by a factor of 2 within the next decade. If we do that, and other countries around the world do that, we can prevent the planet from warming beyond a catastrophic 3-degree Fahrenheit level.
And Dr. Dahl, we're starting to see President Biden, he signed an executive order this week to target having 50% of all cars sold in the U.S. as electric by 2030. The EPA also announced fuel emission standards to hit by 2026, 52 miles a gallon. I know some climate groups have said this doesn't go far enough. What kind of a difference will it make?
Look, these sorts of measures are critical, and we need to be doing everything we can as fast as we can. If we can accomplish the goals that the Biden administration has set out, that's great, and we need to be encouraging countries around the world to be doing the same. Really, the U.S. can be a leader here instead of a follower in things like increasing emission standards for vehicles and increasing renewable energy. So the faster we can move, the better off we're going to be.
And Dr. Mann, how does the United States convince other countries to also go along? Of course, we were an outlier during the Trump administration. What more can President Biden do at this point to get the world to coalesce around this issue?
Yeah, it's about leadership. And look, there has been a restoration of leadership here now on the part of the United States. The Biden administration has made a bold pledge to cut our emissions in half within the next decade. And other countries now are coming to the table. We've now re-engaged China, and they have agreed to prioritize action on climate. So changing leadership here in the United States changes the picture worldwide. And so there's reason for cautious optimism later this year when the leaders of the world meet in Glasgow at the next major climate conference. There's reason to believe we will get the sorts of commitments that are necessary to get us on a path that limits warming below catastrophic levels.
Let's hope we can get there. Dr. Mann, Dr. Dahl, thank you both for your time and your information this morning. We're going to be looking forward to that report coming out from the UN tomorrow as well.
The Tokyo Olympics closing ceremony brought to an end 17 days of competitions, which took place as coronavirus infection cases surged in the host city. Sunday's event kicked off with a fireworks display. No spectators were allowed at the ceremony. Flag bearers representing each team entered the venue, led by Greece and Japan. Volunteers carried the flags for some teams because their members had already left Japan. Due to the pandemic, organizers required athletes to leave the Olympic Village within 2 days after their competitions. One of the ceremony's highlights was the official handover from Tokyo to Paris, the host of the 2024 Summer Games. Tokyo Governor Koike Yuriko passed the Olympic flag to Paris Mayor Anne Hidalgo. A screen showed live footage from the next host country where hundreds of people welcomed the 2024 Games. Organizing committee head Hashimoto Seiko thanked everyone who made the Tokyo Games possible, including medical workers. She said she wanted the hope to continue to light up people's hearts. The Olympic flame was extinguished at 10:15 p.m. Tokyo is set to hold the Paralympics from August 24 in 2 weeks. Taking a look back at the Olympic medals table for the Tokyo Games, the United States topped the table for the third consecutive time with 39 golds, but China and Japan both made remarkable strides. China's athletes go home with 38 golds, up from 26 in Rio. The host country comes in third on 27 golds, a huge leap from its previous record of 16. Among other Asian teams, Taiwan won a record 12 medals, including 2 golds. The Philippines earned its first ever gold medal. Japan won 9 golds in its specialty sport of judo, plus 5 in wrestling. It also added more in the new sports, including skateboarding and karate. Japan's total of 58 medals of all colors is also a record. The Tokyo Metropolitan Government says the number of daily coronavirus cases topped 4,000 again on Sunday. Officials confirmed 4,066 new infections. It's the 5th day in a row the figure has surpassed 4,000. 151 people are seriously ill, and one man in his 50s died. Experts are expressing a greater sense of urgency and crisis as cases surge nationwide. A group led by Professor Wada Koji of the International University of Health and Welfare conducted an online survey in July of people in the Tokyo area. About half of those in their 40s and 50s said they do not think they will be infected with the coronavirus.
The number of people who are seriously ill is increasing. People who think the risks are low tend to take insufficient preventive measures. Those in their 40s and 50s who play key roles in their companies should accurately assess the risks.
Wada says it is especially important for people in their 40s and 50s to be aware they could become infected. Hundreds of thousands of people have taken to the streets across France to protest against a COVID-19 health pass. Everyone in the country will need it shortly to use some facilities, but protesters say it takes away their freedom. More than 230,000 people participated in about 200 rallies nationwide on Saturday. The protests have taken place every Saturday since mid-July. The government will begin on Monday to require proof of vaccination or a negative test result to enter eating and drinking establishments and to access long-distance travel by plane or high-speed train. Around half of the population in France has been vaccinated, but distrust of the vaccine is still deep-rooted in the country.
I support the vaccination, but not showing the proof. To make it mandatory is regrettable, as it robs people of freedom.
It's unbelievable to require the pass for long-distance travel because it's not required on a subway where social distance cannot be kept.
The Delta variant in France is spreading fast, and new daily cases top 20,000 in recent days. The families of those who lost their lives in the September 11th attacks 20 years ago have released a letter demanding action from the current U.S. president. It says Joe Biden will not be welcome at this year's memorial events unless he declassifies documents and evidence related to the events of that day. Most of the attackers were Saudi Arabian. The families have long contended that officials and associates of the Saudi government could be linked to the terrorist attacks. Previous U.S. governments have kept the documents secret, citing national security concerns. Some media have reported that nearly 1,800 family members, first responders, and survivors signed the letter sent to the president on Friday. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki said at a news conference that Biden continues to be committed to the issue. Tropical storm Lupit is moving across the Kyushu and Shikoku regions. The storm could bring thunderclouds and extremely heavy rainfall to western Japan through Monday. Lupit is expected to become a low-pressure system over the Sea of Japan. It may also bring heavy rainfall on Monday and Tuesday to eastern and northern Japan. Our meteorologist Saika Mori has details.
The center of Lupit touched Kagoshima Prefecture on Sunday night. Kagoshima is the most tropical storm-prone area of the country. Lupit has become the second named storm to make landfall in Japan so far this year. Now, this system has brought record-breaking amounts of heavy rainfall over Kyushu. Parts of Miyazaki Prefecture saw 80 millimeters of rain in a span of only 1 hour. That's the all-time record. Winds were strong as well. Now, as we go into Monday morning into Tuesday, the system could become a low-pressure system and drift over the Sea of Japan because the sea surface temperatures are about 5 degrees higher than normal, and we have a cold air mass aloft. This system will likely intensify, and then as a powerful storm, it could move over northern Japan, including Tohoku and Hokkaido. Wind gusts could be as high as 140 kilometers per hour on your Tuesday, so be careful of very strong winds. Secure your outside items. On top of strong winds, heavy rain will also hit northern Japan, maybe up to 250 millimeters likely in Hokkaido. That's a lot for the region. But for the next 24 hours or so, because of the southerly flow caused by a tropical storm,